And we must be bold like David.
Y deben ser valientes como David.
He could have easily said, God, why did you put me into this place?
Él fácilmente hubiera dicho, ¿por qué me pones en esta situación,
God,
Dios?
why was I born into this family?
¿Por qué nací en esta familia, Dios?
My dad doesn't even like me.
Mi papá no me quiere.
All my brothers make fun of me.
Todos mis hermanos se burlan de
Why
mí.
am I put into this place?
¿Por qué nací aquí?
You may be seated.
Pueden sentarse.
I'm excited today.
Estoy muy
I'm
emocionada hoy.
excited because the word that God has for us
Estoy muy emocionada porque la palabra que Dios tiene
is amazing.
es increíble.
And never forget that.
Nunca se olviden
Never forget to come to the house of God with an expectation.
de venir a la casa de Dios con expectativas.
Because many of the times we just come rushed, right?
Porque a veces solo
We
venimos de
come
afán.
rushed and we're like, oh my God, I have to be there, I have to go. And then we're even late.
E incluso llegamos tarde diciendo, uy, tenía que llegar antes.
And then worship is going on and we're like, yeah, we're singing the song.
Y luego empieza la alabanza y no es como, sí, pues canto la
No,
canción.
but you need to come with an expectation
Pero-
that God will speak to you.
No, debes venir con expectativas porque Dios te va a hablar.
That regardless of how bad your situation may look,
A pesar de lo mal que se vea tu situación,
that situation is not bigger than our God.
esa
Amen?
situación no es más grande que nuestro Dios. Amén.
So today, the message of today is born for change.
Así que el mensaje de hoy es, nací para cambiar.
Tell the person next to you, born for change.
Dile, nací
You were
para
born for
cambiar.
change.
Naciste para cambiar.
Now, ask the person next to you, when is your birthday?
Pregúntale al que está a tu lado, ¿cuándo es tu
My birthday is March
cumpleaños?
4th, yours?
El mío es
March 21st.
marzo 21, marzo 4.
So, okay, so when is your birthday? Shout out a birthday. There you go. Okay.
Okay, tenemos
December 31st
diciembre 31.
was the day.
¿Cuál es el día?
No, was the day
Fue el día
that God planned
que Dios
for Rochelle
planeó
to be born.
que Rochelle naciera.
December 31st
El 31 de
was the
diciembre
day
fue el día
that you were born
que
to
naciste
bring change into this world.
para traer un cambio a este mundo.
Now, March 4th,
El 4 de
my
marzo
birthday,
es mi
was the
nacimiento.
day that God chose for me to be born to bring change into this world.
Fue el día en que Dios escogió para que yo naciera para traer
March
cambio a este mundo.
21st
El 21 de marzo
Was the day
fue el día
that God had predestined for Marian to be born to bring change into the world.
que Dios predestinó para que Marian naciera y trajera un cambio a este mundo.
Now, God has a purpose for everything.
Dios tiene un propósito para todo.
He created the animals for a purpose.
Él creó los animales
He
con
created the
propósito.
vegetations. He created the entire earth for
Creó
a
la
purpose.
vegetación y toda la tierra con un propósito.
And he also created you with a specific purpose.
Y también te creó a ti con un propósito específico.
It's not a coincidence that you were conceived the day that you were conceived.
No fue coincidencia que te concibieran el día en que fue así.
You know, many of the times we're like, oh, I was a mistake.
Muchas veces uno dice, bueno, yo nací por error.
Or many of the times people tell us that you were really a mistake.
O la gente nos cuenta que realmente hubo un error ahí.
Or also what happens was, what I've heard was, oh, my mom wanted a daughter, but I'm a son.
O muchas veces he escuchado, bueno, mi mamá quería una niña, pero yo soy un chico.
So therefore I was a mistake.
Así que yo nací por
Let
error.
me tell you something.
Pero déjame decirte algo.
God has a purpose.
Dios tiene un propósito.
You know, do you know that
¿Sabías
even before you were conceived,
que antes de que te concibieran,
God had you in his thoughts?
Dios pensaba en ti?
You were in idea of God before you were ever conceived.
Fuiste una idea de Dios mucho antes de que te concibieran.
So there is no coincidence in why we were born the day that we were born.
No es coincidencia que hayas nacido el día en que naciste.
Now, when you begin to understand this,
Y cuando empezamos a entender esto,
we begin to walk in a different manner.
empezamos a caminar de forma
Because
diferente.
now we know, okay, we were born for a purpose.
Porque ahora sabemos, bueno, nací con un propósito.
We were born to change the world.
Nací para cambiar el mundo.
Now tell the person next
Dile
to
al que
you,
está a tu
do
lado,
you know
¿sabías
that you are born to change
que
the world?
naciste para cambiar el mundo?
You're a world changer.
Eres una cambiamundos.
You're not just here to take up space.
No solamente estás aquí para ocupar
You're
espacio.
a world changer. Say that with me.
Eres
I am a world
Un
changer.
cambiamundos, soy un cambiamundos.
So when we begin to understand that we are chosen,
Cuando empezamos a entender que fuimos elegidos,
then the moment that we are born
que el momento en que nacimos
and the moment that we are right now, the time frame,
y ese tiempo que ha pasado de ese momento hasta ahora,
the time frame between when you are born to now,
ese tiempo que ha pasado desde tu nacimiento
is
hasta ahora,
our responsibility to fulfill God's purpose
nuestra responsabilidad es cumplir el propósito de Dios
during that time.
durante ese tiempo.
So during that time that we are growing,
Durante el tiempo en que estamos creciendo,
the clock begins to tick.
empieza el reloj a hacer tic-tac.
You know, and there's so many different things that come into your life, different choices that you have to make.
Hay muchas cosas que vienen a tu vida como decisiones.
I'm a visual person,
Soy una persona
so
muy
I always
visual,
like to think
así que me gusta pensar
that God's plan is over here.
que el plan de Dios está aquí,
And from the moment that we are born, we're over here.
pero cuando nacemos estamos por allá.
Right here, like this point. And when we are growing, we have to choose which path to take.
Pero cuando estamos creciendo debemos elegir qué camino coger.
And if we choose our own opinion and our own thoughts, then we take a wrong turn.
Y si elegimos nuestra propia voluntad, nuestros pensamientos, como que nos desviamos un poco.
And then, if we then accept Jesus in our heart,
Pero luego aceptamos a Jesús en el
and we begin
corazón
to obey,
y empezamos a obedecer.
we begin to die to our will,
Empezamos a morir a nuestra
we begin to
voluntad
accept the will of
y
God,
empezamos a aceptar la voluntad de
then now
Dios.
we're going straight.
Y luego otra vez nos
And then other
enderezamos.
choices in life, we take that wrong turn.
Y de pronto viene otra
And then the
decisión.
grace of God and the mercy of God, we make that U-turn back again.
Te desvías, pero la gracia de Dios te hace volver.
But what does the enemy want us to not know?
Pero ¿qué es lo que el enemigo no quiere que sepas?
He wants you to stay in that U-turn.
Él quiere que sigas dando como esa vuelta.
He wants you to stay in those different paths that God hasn't called you to be in.
Él quiere que estés en esos caminos en donde no deberías estar.
And what he constantly feeds in your mind is, you weren't called for this.
Y lo que constantemente te dice es que no fuiste llamado para
You
eso.
were just called to take up space.
Solamente existes para
You're
ocupar
just
un
a regular
espacio.
person.
Eres alguien muy normal.
And the reason why he tells you these things,
Y la razón por la que te dice
it's
esto
because if you knew and if you were empowered by God, you would change the world.
es porque si tú supieras y fueras empoderado por Dios, cambiarías el mundo.
And that's the reason
Esa es la razón.
why the enemy always wants to bring you down
¿Por qué el enemigo siempre te quiere
with different
oprimir?
arguments,
Diferentes argumentos,
with different negativity,
con
with
negatividad
different friends.
y amigos.
So what we must understand
Debemos entender
is that we are born for change.
que nacimos para cambiar el mundo.
So say that with me. I am a world changer.
Dilo conmigo, soy un cambiamundos.
So we're going to be learning some truths about a man in the Bible
Vamos a aprender unas verdades sobre un hombre en la Biblia.
that we have all heard of him.
Y todos hemos escuchado de él.
But I'm going to give a quick recap on who he is.
Pero voy a recapitular quién es él.
So his name is David.
Su nombre fue David.
Okay, so ask the person next to you, do you know who David is?
Pregúntale al que está a tu lado.
Do
¿Sabes
you
quién
know
era
who
David?
David is?
¿Sabes quién era David?
Is someone's name David?
¿Alguien se llama David aquí?
Oh, awesome. We have one David here.
Tenemos un
Give
David.
a big round of applause.
Un aplauso
We have one
para
David
David.
here. Okay, so David
David
was part of a large family.
era parte de una familia grande.
Okay, he was born he was the last one to be born, so he was the youngest of the family.
Era el menor de todos los hermanos.
He had 7 brothers.
Tenía 7 hermanos.
Okay, I want you to picture
Y quiero que te imagines
what his life might have been.
cómo era su vida.
Okay, so he has 7 brothers.
Tenía 7 hermanos mayores.
They're all, built.
Todos son así fuertes,
They all have muscles.
musculosos.
And they're in the army.
Están en el
They're
ejército.
training all the
Todo
time.
el tiempo están ahí entrenando.
All 7 of them.
Todos los 7.
And then there's David.
Y luego está David.
He has scrawny arms.
Tiene los bracitos así escuálidos.
He doesn't have any muscles.
No tiene
He's
músculos.
just a regular dude.
Es solamente alguien normal.
Now, when we really get into the life of David,
Pero cuando vemos realmente la vida de David,
we see that he grew up in a difficult home.
vemos que él creció en un hogar problemático.
We see that his father Jesse,
Su papá Isaí
we see that he really did not respect David.
no respetaba a David.
He didn't include him in everything.
No lo incluía en todo.
And we can see that obviously, damages a son.
Obviamente eso trae daños a un hijo.
Because what I imagined was that his father was like, oh yeah, these are my sons, these
Porque
7 strong men.
Me imagino que su papá decía, estos son mis hijos, todos musculosos y fuertes.
And just to give you the context,
Pero les voy a dar contexto.
there was a prophet.
Había un profeta,
His name was Samuel.
su nombre era Samuel.
And he wanted to come into the house of Jesse.
Y quería venir a la casa de
And
Isaí.
he needed to see all of his sons because God sent him to anoint the new king.
Y quería ver a todos sus hijos porque Dios lo había enviado a ungir al nuevo rey.
So Jesse, the father,
Su padre
he's
Isaí
excited.
estaba
And
súper
he tells all
emocionado.
of his sons except David.
Y le dijo a todos sus hijos menos a David.
He says, look, you guys have to look your best.
Y les dijo, miren, pónganse bien
Go
guapos.
to the gym so you can pump more iron
Vayan por favor
so that the
al
prophet can see
gimnasio
that you're ready.
para que el profeta vea que ustedes
All
están
right, I'm
listos.
going to prepare a feast.
Voy a preparar un
And
banquete
we're going to invite the prophet. It's going to be great. We're going to be the most famous family in all of Israel.
y vamos a invitar al profeta, va a ser increíble y vamos
It's
a
gonna
ser
be
la
great.
familia más famosa. Va a
But
ser
you know
genial.
what?
Pero ¿saben qué?
David, you're not coming.
Tú, David, no vengas.
What you're going to do is
Lo que tú vas a hacer
you're going to go kill the cattle that we're going to eat.
es que tú vas a ir a matar a las ovejas que nos vamos a comer.
That's what you're going to do.
Eso es lo que tú vas a hacer.
Imagine how David felt.
Imagínense cómo se sentía David.
There was a rejection there.
Hubo un rechazo ahí.
And why am I telling this story?
¿Por qué les cuento esta historia?
It's because it's important to understand
Porque es importante entender
that God doesn't see the outside.
que Dios no ve el exterior.
God sees the heart.
Dios ve el
So
corazón.
you know what happened in this story?
¿Y saben qué pasó en
The
esta
prophet
historia?
came.
El profeta vino,
He was ready. He was excited.
estaba listo,
He
estaba
was pumped.
emocionado,
He had
súper
his
feliz.
oil ready
Tenía su aceite listo
to anoint the new king.
para ungir al nuevo rey.
He stepped into the home
Entró a ese lugar
and he sees
y
the
vio
first brother.
el primer hermano,
He's tall.
súper
He
alto,
has so much muscle, so many muscles.
tan musculoso y esbelto.
And he says to himself, God, this has to be the one.
Y dice, este es.
He's so tall.
Es muy
He
alto,
looks tough. He looks brave.
se ve bien
And God
valiente.
told him, walk away. That's not him.
Pero Dios le dijo, no, ese no es.
He goes to the next son.
Luego al
He's
siguiente.
like, okay, this might be him. He's a little shorter, but, he still has biceps.
Dijo, bueno, este es más bajito, pero tiene bíceps.
God told him, no,
Y
continue.
Dios le dijo, no, no es él.
He went to all the 7 sons.
Fue a todos los 7
And
hermanos.
God said, he is not in the house.
Pero Dios le dijo, él no está en la casa.
Then he goes to the father and he's like, are these all of your sons?
Y luego le dice al padre, ¿estos son todos tus hijos?
He's like, yeah, no.
Y él, sí, no.
I have one that's in the back and he's tending the sheep.
Hay uno que está en la parte de atrás de la casa cuidando a las ovejas.
And the prophet goes, bring him to me.
Y le dijo el profeta,
We're not
tráelo.
going to start to eat until he comes.
No vamos a empezar a comer hasta que él venga.
When David comes inside,
Cuando llegó David a la casa,
God tells the prophet that's him.
Dios le dijo al profeta, es él.
So I want you guys to understand
Entonces quiero que entiendan
that David was born
que David nació
to change the world.
para cambiar el mundo.
It might have seemed that he was a mistake
Parecía que había nacido por error,
because he was the last one that was born.
porque era el menor de la
He
familia.
didn't look like any of his brothers.
No se veía como
No
ninguno de
one
sus
expected
hermanos.
anything from him.
Nadie esperaba nada de él.
But you know what? He had the heart of God.
Pero ¿saben qué? Tenía el corazón de Dios.
And that is why God chose him.
Y por esa razón Dios lo eligió.
And in this story, I see three important things
Y en esta historia veo tres cosas
that are
importantes
going to help us.
que nos van a ayudar.
And before that, I want to go to 1 Samuel,
Antes de eso me gustaría ir a
Chapter
Primera de
16.
Samuel 16.
and we're going to be reading
Y vamos a leer desde el versículo
It
10.
says, in the same way, all 7 of Jesse's sons were presented to Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen any of this. So remember, he's looking for the anointed one.
Recuerden que Samuel aquí está buscando al elegido.
Then Samuel asked, are these all the sons you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse replied, but he's out in the fields watching the sheep and the goats. Send for him at once, Samuel said. We will not sit down to eat until he arrives. Verse 12, it says, so Jesse sent for him. He was dark, handsome, and with beautiful eyes. And the Lord said, this is the one, anoint him. So as David stood there among his brothers, Samuel took the flask of olive oil he had brought and anointed David with the oil. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. Then Samuel returned to Ramah. So here in this verse we can see
En este versículo
that David stood amongst his brothers. So imagine this.
vemos que David estaba entre sus hermanos, imagínenlo.
You know, all of the sons are surrounding him now.
Todos los hijos, los hermanos lo están rodeando.
After they, you know, they're so excited that they're probably going to be the next king.
Después de la emoción que tenían de saber que de pronto eran
Then the
reyes.
prophet stands in front of them and says no.
Pero luego el profeta les dice no enfrente.
So imagine they're obviously angry right
Entonces,
now. At this point.
imagínense, debían estar
You know,
muy de mal
then
genio.
David comes inside.
Y luego viene
He
David.
probably didn't even know what was going
Ni
on.
siquiera sabía qué estaba
You know,
pasando ahí.
he had sheep all over him. He wasn't dressed for a dinner.
No estaba listo para una cena
He comes
formal.
in and the prophet says, you are it.
Entra y Samuel le dice, tú eres el elegido.
And the brothers are around him.
Y sus hermanos estaban
And it says
alrededor.
here that when Samuel anointed David, what happened?
Y dice aquí que qué pasó cuando Samuel ungió
What
a David.
happened?
¿Qué
The
pasó?
Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him.
El Espíritu de Dios vino con poder
That
sobre
is what
David.
God is preparing to do today to you.
Eso es lo que Dios quiere hacer contigo hoy.
God is preparing the Spirit of the Lord to come upon you.
Dios está preparando su Espíritu Santo para que venga sobre ti.
But you know what?
Pero ¿sabes
You have
qué?
to know that you're a world changer.
Debes saber que eres un cambiamundos.
Because God anoints you so that you can do something.
Porque Dios te unge para que puedas
God
hacer algo.
anoints you so that you can change the world.
Dios te unge para que
He
puedas
doesn't
cambiar
anoint you so you can just sit.
el mundo, no solo para que te sientes ahí.
No, you have to act.
Tienes que actuar.
You have to go outside.
Tienes que
You have
salir.
to change the world.
Tienes que cambiar
So
el
there are
mundo.
3 important things that I learned.
Y hay tres cosas que aprendí.
Number 1,
Número uno,
when God anoints you,
cuando Dios te
He
unge,
places you where you need to be.
te pone donde tienes que estar.
I'm going to repeat that.
Voy a
When
repetirlo.
God anoints you,
Cuando Dios te
He
unge,
places you where you need to be.
te pone donde tienes que estar.
without you doing anything,
sin que tú tengas que hacer
God will
nada,
begin to promote you.
Dios va a
How many of
empezar
you guys accept that word?
a darte un ascenso.
God will
¿Cuántos?
begin to promote
Dios
you
te dará un
without you
ascenso
doing
sin
anything.
que tengas que hacer nada.
We see in the same chapter 16,
En este mismo
we see
capítulo,
verse 15. Let's see how God promoted
el
David.
versículo 15, veamos el ascenso de David.
It says, some of Saul's servants said to him, a tormenting spirit from God is troubling you. Let us find a good musician to play the harp whenever the tormenting spirit troubles you. He will play soothing music and you will be soon be well again. Verse 17, all right, Saul said, find me someone who plays well and bring him here. So in these verses we see,
En estos versículos
you know, the prophet anointed David, but Saul was still king.
vemos cómo el profeta ungió a David, pero Saúl era rey todavía.
Saul disobeyed God.
Saúl había
And
desobedecido a
because he
Dios.
disobeyed,
Y por causa de eso,
his kingdom was over.
su reinado le fue quitado.
So that's the reason why God anointed David.
Por esa razón, Dios ungió a David.
So in this moment, Saul is being tormented.
Y en este momento, Saúl está siendo atormentado.
I believe in today's language it would be he had anxiety.
En el lenguaje de hoy, tenía
He
ansiedad.
couldn't sleep.
No podía dormir.
His mind was constantly going.
Estaba constantemente pensando,
You know, he
pensando.
was always tense. He couldn't
Siempre
breathe.
tenso, no podía respirar.
So his advisors told him, look, you need somebody to come in here and play soothing music.
Entonces sus consejeros le dijeron, trae a alguien que toque el arpa para que te calmes.
And what happened here was,
Y lo que pasó aquí,
it says, verse 19, so Saul sent messengers to Jesse to say, send me your son David, the shepherd.
fue que dice, entonces Saúl mandó mensajeros a Isaí para decirle, envíame a tu hijo David.
Someone in Saul's kingdom
Alguien en el reino de
knew
Saúl
about David,
sabía que David
told the king about David,
sabía de David y le dijo al
and
rey.
in turn, David became part of the court of the kingdom of
Y
Saul.
en ese momento David se volvió parte de la corte del rey Saúl.
Notice this
Noten esto
and really focus.
y enfóquense.
When God anoints David,
Cuando Dios unge a David,
God puts him in the place where he needs to be.
Dios lo pone donde tiene que
God
estar.
promotes him
Dios le da un
without
ascenso
him moving anything.
sin que él hiciera nada.
When God begins to anoint you,
Cuando Dios te empieza a ungir a
and
ti,
he will in this time,
y lo va a hacer en este
he's going to begin to
momento,
promote you.
va a empezar
without
a darte
you
un
knowing
ascenso
anything.
sin que hagas nada.
So in your class,
En tu clase
you're going to get a crazy grade.
vas a tener notas
And you don't know
altísimas
how.
y no sabes ni
All right,
cómo.
in your job, you're going to get promoted and you don't know how.
En tu trabajo te van a ascender y ni sabrás
Or
cómo.
different opportunities will open up and
Oh.
you don't know how.
Diferentes oportunidades vendrán y tú no sabrás cómo.
Because that's called favor.
O de
Because
drama.
when you're anointed,
Te van a elegir. ¿Por
God
qué?
promotes you without you doing anything.
Porque estás ungido y Dios
That's
te
God's
promueve.
grace.
Esa es la gracia
Give
de
a big
Dios.
round of applause.
Dale un aplauso al Señor.
So God placed David where he needed to be.
Así que Dios puso a David donde tenía que estar.
Listen to this.
Escucha
He
esto.
brought him to the kingdom that one day will be his.
Lo trajo al reinado que un día sería suyo.
Number 2.
Número 2.
God uses untraditional ways
Dios usa formas poco tradicionales
to advance you.
para hacerte avanzar.
God uses untraditional ways to advance you.
Dios usa formas poco tradicionales para hacerte avanzar.
You know, we can say that David was a shepherd boy.
David
That's
era
how
un
he
pastor.
started.
Así fue que empezó.
You know, his father gave him that responsibility
Su papá le dio esa responsabilidad
and he took it serious.
y él la tomó en serio.
David was the best.
David era el
You know,
mejor.
when an animal came to attack the sheep,
Cuando venía un animal a atacar a sus ovejas,
he didn't just look at his phone.
él no solo veía su
He was like,
teléfono
oh, the sheep are getting attacked.
y decía, ay, alguien está atacando a las
Oh
ovejas.
my God, there's blood.
Ay, Dios, sangre.
He didn't stay that way.
No
What
estaba
he did
así,
was he used this opportunity.
sino que usaba esas
He
oportunidades.
grabbed his slingshot
tenía su resortera,
he grabbed his staff.
tenía su callado,
He brought
se
his
llama callado.
slingshot, he brought his staff,
Tenía esas dos cosas
and he was ready.
y estaba listo.
You know, there was bears,
Tenía,
there
habían
was
osos
lions that would
y
attack the sheep.
leones que venían a
And what he
atacar a
did
las
was he would
ovejas.
kill those animals.
Pero lo que hacía él era matar esos animales.
So God uses untraditional ways. God placed him as a shepherd boy.
Así que Dios usó una forma no tradicional y lo puso como ese pastor.
He placed him as a shepherd boy so that one day he can kill giants.
Lo llevó a ser pastor para que un día pudiera matar gigantes.
God knew what he was doing.
Dios sabía lo que estaba
And easily
haciendo.
David could say, "Oh my God, I'm just a shepherd boy. What am I going to do here?"
David fácilmente hubiera dicho, yo solo soy un pastor, ¿qué estoy haciendo
He could have
aquí?
easily given up.
Y se hubiera rendido
But
fácilmente.
God had a purpose.
Pero Dios tenía un propósito,
Just like he has a purpose for you.
justo como tiene un propósito para ti.
And I just want to show you real quickly.
Y me gustaría mostrarte
In 1 Samuel chapter 17,
rápidamente en 1 de Samuel
verse
17,
32, we see the proof.
en el verso 37,
32.
en el 32.
It says, he was getting ready to kill a giant.
Él estaba listo para matar a un
He was
gigante.
like, I'm not afraid. Why are you guys afraid?
Y digo, yo no le tengo miedo porque ustedes
He went to
sí.
the battlefield.
Fue al campo
Everybody
de
was
batalla.
like, this scrawny kid is gonna kill a giant?
Todo el mundo decía, este flacuchento quiere venir a matar al gigante.
What are you thinking?
¿Qué están pensando?
He came to the battlefield and he was like, what are you guys doing?
Vino al campo de batalla y les dijo, ¿qué pasa?
Why do you guys let this giant
¿Por qué dejan que ese gigante
talk against God?
hable en contra de Dios?
I got this.
No se preocupen.
You know what? Since you guys are not doing anything, I got this.
Como no están haciendo nada ustedes, yo me encargo.
And the verse says here, verse
aquí.
32, it says, don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's a man of war since his youth. But David persisted. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. God had a purpose
Dios tenía un
of
propósito
why David was a shepherd boy.
por el cual David había sido un pastor.
Just like God has a purpose where you are at.
Solo, sí, así como Dios tiene
Maybe
un
you're like,
propósito contigo.
I'm just a regular kid that goes to school.
De pronto tú dices, yo solo soy un estudiante más en mi escuela.
I'm just a regular girl that goes to college.
O soy una estudiante más en mi universidad.
I'm just a regular girl or guy that works.
Soy una
a regular
persona
job.
ordinaria que tiene un trabajo ordinario.
No, you're not.
No.
God has a purpose.
Dios tiene un
Say that
propósito.
with me. God has a
Dilo conmigo,
purpose.
Dios tiene un propósito.
So God used that untraditional way to advance David.
Así que Dios usó esa forma poco tradicional para hacerlo avanzar.
Little did he know
Y él no sabía para nada
that by getting the sheep and protecting the sheep,
que cuando estaba protegiendo a sus
and he was
ovejas
killing animals, lions, bears,
y matando animales
little did
gigantes,
he know
no sabía
that he was training to kill
que
the
él
giant.
estaba entrenándose para matar un gigante.
Number 3,
Número 3.
your anointing is unique.
Tu unción es única.
You were made to be different.
Fuiste creado para ser
Tell the
diferente.
person next to you, your
Dile al que está a tu
anointing
lado. Tu unción
is unique.
es única.
And we see in verse 38,
Y lo vemos en el versículo 38.
you know, when David was getting ready to go and kill this Goliath, the giant,
Cuando David se estaba preparando para ir a matar a Goliat,
Saul had an idea.
Saúl tuvo una idea
And he said,
y
all
le
right,
dijo,
you know what? If this boy is gonna get killed,
ok, si este chiquito va a ir a matar a un gigante,
at least put my armor on.
Por lo menos que le den una armadura
You know, so that people can see that I care for the kid.
para que la gente vea que sí me importa su vida.
You know, at least put the helmet on.
Por lo menos el
You
casco,
know, get my sword.
denle mi
No,
espada.
but I don't really have hope for you, David.
Pero realmente no tengo nada de esperanza por ti,
Verse
David.
38 says,
Pero el 38,
Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet, and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped a sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off again.
no puedo andar con todo esto, le dijo a Saúl. No estoy acostumbrado a usarlo, así que David se lo quitó.
So Saul tried to give him his anointing.
Así que Saúl trató de darle la unción que él tenía a David,
David's anointing was unique.
pero la unción de David era
And the word
única.
of God says that he took it off
Y la palabra de Dios dice que se quitó todo eso,
because God had a purpose and a plan for David.
porque Dios tenía un plan y un
Just
propósito
like
con
God has a
David.
purpose and a plan for you.
Justo como Dios tiene un plan y un propósito
Tell the
contigo,
person next to you,
dile al que
don't
está a tu
copy
lado,
anybody.
no copies a nadie.
God has something special and unique for you.
Dios tiene algo especial y único para ti.
David knew who he was.
David sabía quién era él.
He knew that God had a unique plan for his
Él
life.
sabía que Dios tenía un plan único para él.
You must know who you are.
Tú debes saber quién eres.
God has a plan for you.
Dios tiene un plan
And you
para
will
ti.
bring change to this generation.
Y vas a traer un cambio a esta
If we continue
generación.
to read the verse 40,
Y si vemos el verso 40,
we see that David picked up 5 smooth stones
vemos que David escoge 5 piedras
and he had his sling, his staff and his sling.
y tenía su resortera y su callado.
And with that unconventional weapon,
Y con esas armas tan extravagantes,
he killed a giant.
mató a un gigante.
You know, God is looking for us
Dios está buscando,
because he wants to use us,
Él quiere usarnos,
but he is looking for people
pero Él está buscando
who
gente
are willing to give everything for God.
que esté dispuesta a darlo todo por Dios.
You know, when we understand that we are born for change,
Cuando entendemos que nacimos para
we
cambiar el
begin to
mundo,
walk with a mission.
debemos empezar a caminar con una misión.
It doesn't matter how you grew up.
No importa cómo
It
creciste
doesn't matter what you've done.
ni lo que has hecho.
Because if you repent,
Porque si te arrepientes,
then all things are made new.
entonces todo es hecho nuevo.
Amen?
Amén.
Say that with me. All things are made new.
Dilo conmigo, todo es hecho nuevo.
So I'm going to ask you guys to stand up.
Así que les voy a pedir que se
And we're
pongan
going
en
to do
pie.
a quick prayer.
Y vamos a orar rápidamente.
And I just want to remind you guys
Y solo quiero recordarles
that God has already given you the victory.
que Dios ya te dio la victoria.
You know, whatever you're facing right now,
Lo que estés enfrentando ahora mismo,
whether it is financial debt,
sin importar si es una deuda
whether it is a heart problem,
o un problema de tus emociones
whether it
y
is a
corazón.
mental health problem,
De pronto es algo con tu salud mental,
whether it is, you know, just different difficulties and problems that you're facing,
de pronto diferentes dificultades.
God has given you the victory already.
Dios ya te dio la victoria.
I want you to know
Quiero que
that it's
sepas
your right to be free.
que tu derecho es el de ser libre.
You are a son and daughter of God.
Tú eres un hijo, una hija de
And He
Dios.
has given you the victory.
Y Dios te ha dado la victoria.
It's just time to take it.
Pero es tiempo de que la tomes.
And we must be bold like David.
Y deben ser valientes como David.
He could have easily said, God, why did you put me into this place?
Él fácilmente hubiera dicho, ¿por qué me pones en esta situación,
God, why
Dios?
was I born into this family?
¿Por qué nací en esta familia, Dios?
My dad doesn't even like me.
Mi papá no me quiere.
All my brothers make fun of me.
Todos mis hermanos se burlan de
Why
mí.
am I put into this
¿Por
place?
qué nací aquí?
But what he did,
Pero lo que él hizo
he believed in God.
fue creer en
He
Dios.
trusted God.
Confió en Dios.
And he took the victory.
Y él tomó la
He was
victoria.
bold.
Él era valiente.
So right there where you are, you're going to close your eyes.
Así que cierra tus ojos.
Father God, we thank you
Gracias, Señor.
We thank you, Holy Spirit,
Gracias, Espíritu Santo,
for this lesson.
por esta lección.
We thank you, God, because you are beginning to teach us
Gracias, Señor, porque nos estás empezando a enseñar
that we are the ones who will bring change to this world.
que seremos los que cambiaremos este mundo.
Lord, allow us to understand this concept.
Permítenos entender este concepto.
Holy Spirit, we ask you to accompany us every day.
Espíritu Santo, acompáñanos cada día.
God, I ask you to begin a good work in us.
Dios, te pedimos que empieces tu
I
buena
ask you to
obra,
begin to take away
que
all the negative
empieces
things.
a quitar las cosas
Begin to
negativas,
wash us away from all the sins.
que nos quites todo pecado.
Begin to wash us completely.
Empieza a limpiarnos,
Lord,
Señor.
sanctify us as your holy people.
Santifícanos como tu pueblo santo.
Lord, I ask you in this moment
Te pido en este momento
that you can show us how we can bring change.
que nos muestres cómo cambiar las cosas,
That you can show us how to bring change to our job.
que nos muestres cómo cambiar nuestro trabajo,
That you can show us how to bring change in our school.
que nos muestres cómo cambiar nuestra escuela
That you can show us how to bring change in our friends, in our atmosphere.
y cómo traer cambio a nuestros amigos, a nuestra
Lord,
atmósfera.
begin a new work in us.
Cambia,
Begin to
transforma,
transform our heart.
empieza a
Begin
transformar
to
nuestro
transform the way that
corazón
we think,
y la
Lord.
forma en que
Take
pensamos.
away any fear.
Quita todo
Take
temor,
away any negativity.
toda
Take away
negatividad,
any anxiousness.
todo problema de salud
And
mental.
we pray, God,
Que hoy oramos,
that we will see your glory this year.
que podamos ver tu gloria
That
en
this
este
year
año.
will be our glory year, Lord.
Que podamos ver tu gloria aquí,
And
Señor.
right there where you are,
Y
you're
ahí
going to
donde
begin to
estás.
pour your heart out to God.
Quiero que empieces a derramar tu
You're going to begin
corazón.
to tell him what you're feeling.
Dile lo que estás sintiendo.
You're going to begin to tell him what you want him to change.
Dile lo que quieres que cambie.
Thank you, God.
Gracias, Señor.
Thank you for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay dope.